definitely finding ways to counter it.
Well, I don't think the Gale Force are out of the woods yet.
No.
But if LFM picks first pick now, there's still Towers of Doom that's up for Gale Force. And although Gale Force did lose one game on Towers of Doom out of the 2 that they've played in series, they did dominantly win versus Team Freedom by holding on to the bottom bell tower for just about the whole entire game. So it's a place where they feel comfortable. Let's see where we're going for game 4, because this still could be anyone's series. LFM picks first pick again. Gale Force not picking Towers of Doom. They pick Dragonshire.
You know, we actually saw Zeratul win last game for Gale Force, which is definitely positive. And this is, again, we saw this from Glaurung yesterday on Tempo Storm. It was kind of the solo there, but it also allowed to play that Zeratul flex, that roam more towards the late game. They used him as the solo, flexed him a little bit, and he was able to come in and really turn the tides in some of those team fights. So Zeratul could be a possibility here again for our 3rd game of the series.
You know, both of those games, what they had in common, Zeratul versus Leoric in the solo lane. So maybe we're not giving enough credit to Zeratul being able to keep up with Leo, and maybe something now for LFM to keep in mind as they prioritize their solos. Maybe looking towards something else, or making sure to respect B-Kid Zeratul in some other avenue, because he's shown that he has the prowess to play it.
Swab's pretty good Dahaka player. We're actually talking off camera about how good he's been on that. Going back to the Open Division, same thing. We always saw it. Swabs Magoo back then. Now he's just Swabs, a little bit shorter name, but always getting to call Swabs Magoo, coming in with the flank there on Dahaka. Made a lot of good plays for his team in the Open Division. Maybe that's a priority that they might try and have here on Dragonshire.
This team had the most name changes.
Yeah.
By far. Special Team have struggling with that one. We got FC Ignition going to Figgy, Swabs Magoo. It's sad.
It was the Aware. Now it's just Aware.
Oh.
So you take the "the" off. It's
let me give you some advice. Drop the "the." It's just Aware.
The Aware. It's just it's a complete name change for them.
Yeah.
Again, if you tell me, look, you can go make some money, play in the pro scene, shorten your name, change your name a little bit, I'm probably changing my name.
Worth it. Yeah,
probably.
I guess so. All right, well, we're getting ready for Dragonshire. This is the first Gale Force pick of Dragonshire, I'm pretty sure. Does this strike you as an LFM map, a place where maybe we could see them get a win to take us to Game 5?
I think if they get the Dahaka, it definitely feels a little bit more LFM style in the way that they can play and then prioritize that global, but it also makes me wonder if we might see the Falstad in response from Michael Udall to also deal with that solo lane and then to kind of counter that global. We've seen ETC, if it goes through, have the stage dive priority, but I think that it would still be in a solo, or excuse me, in a group sense until the late game to where he becomes the solo to prioritize that global. So depending on how the early game goes, depending on how ETC's played, can you get the advantage early game if you're LFM? There's a lot of counterplays, I think, based around the globals for both these teams coming into this.
It also seems like a really big, another really big battleground for the Hanzo Tassadar. Because of the wave clear that Tassadar gives rotating around, he can sort of solo hold a lane if he's needed, and then Hanzo's constant mercenary camp pressure is something that's difficult for teams to deal with, especially in that bottom lane. So that's something to keep in mind. It's just sort of been something to keep in mind for these teams. Yeah, we're just waiting for the teams to be ready for this Dragonshire draft. Anything else pop into mind?
Gul'dan.
Yeah?
Yeah, Gul'dan. This has been probably the map where he's been most banned. When we have seen him banned, I think in Europe and North America, that's just, I don't have numbers, I just recalling some of the drafts, and this is one I believe in particular that was banned out against Gale Force before. He controls the rotations, give you the quick rotations, and I think we actually had seen it on here to where the rotations were you get split, you don't have that clear, you don't have that backup damage, and I think that's one of the things that if you do play that style, you've got to be a little bit more careful with your rotations between, say, mid-bot.
Well, here we go. Does Gale Force Esports close it out with this game? Let's see. LFM last Dragon game, sort of similar drafting as they had both in prior series with a high gray main focus, but also in the last game by having their Johanna. For Gale Force on Dragon, they ended up getting Tychus and a late Kerrigan poked her head out in this draft.
Well, I'm pretty sure LFM saw that, has taken very good note of that. We saw it in Infernal Shrines and Dragonshire, both a success for Gale Force last week. But we also saw some potential Stukov counters, and that's something, you know, with LFM, you know, the hero pool in terms of support. We've seen a couple of Uther games lately. Are we willing to see something else here from LFM, something that might be a little bit more counter-centric? We're seeing Genji right off the bat as the first hover, though.
Just waiting to see if there's any last second switches. Nope. Genji ban. Now Gale Force, because they're in the second pick slot, what is most important to them?
The scatter arrow around shrines.
Hanzo.
We saw Tempo do this. Jun played an amazing Stukov on here against an ETC. Had Hanzo on the backside. You walk in, you can't exactly slide in, you can't slide out, and Hanzo is just getting mad value off of that scatter arrow. So if you're gonna go down that route, you know, hopefully you were taking note yesterday, because Tempo looked really good with that style.
I think Gale Force can be content in knowing that one of those two is going to be first picked, either ETC or Hanzo for LFM, but I love seeing that Dahaka ban. Swabs, I would say it's his best, for sure. That game 1 on Curse, how many drags he hit, how much he did for LFM, he's very good on that hero.
It's the only thing that comes to mind. We were just discussing draft, what could make it in LFM's favor. Swabs on Dahaka, maybe high priority. And Gale Force is like, you know what, we know that. So just taking that off the board. So we've seen the Zeratul, we've seen Malthael banned out a couple times later game. Might see a potential B-Kid Malthael this go around, I think.
Maybe even higher up.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that they can get him. We'll see. Maybe it's a force back into the Leoric, and Gale Force feel like they have the Leoric answer. LFM's really taking their time trying to figure out what this first pick should be for them.
I mean, Hanzo's right there.
Hanzo or ETC? Hanzo.
Every death comes honor. With honor, redemption.
Redemption.
Maybe without the Tassadar ban, and because they have first pick, there's the likelihood we might see a Tassadar in this next rotation here for LFM. Lock that in early. Make sure it cannot get banned out for you. And speaking of redemption, you know, it pairs up really well when we talk about using Tassadar, making sure that you heal up off of those shields. Redemption's actually been one of the key components of that.
Yeah.
Is going in to get, you get the shield, so normally you get the auto attack hero to go in there. Hanzo has really slow auto attacks unless he goes redemption, and I think that's kind of been the key component here in North America, is making sure to go redemption at level 1 to pair with the Tassadar to make sure you get even more value out of the Tassadar.
Yeah, get that 50% attack speed increase. I didn't know if that would be a favored talent choice, just because you can always lose stacks, but because you have the survivability of the double support to boot with that, and he has natural agility as a means of escape, Hanzos have been pretty successful in keeping themselves alive, even versus the Zeratul types of dives that we've seen from Gale Force and from other teams on Hanzo. Last two couple of picks, that Tassadar is still available. If the solo needs to be something else with Dahaka band, that might be the place Leoric is, but it's going to be Rhaegar.
I mean, they must really want to try and counter Gale Force's picks, because we have seen almost no priority on Rhaegar here in North America. And for them to prioritize it this high means that they might have a trick or two up their sleeve depending on Gale Force's draft. Tassadar was banned out, and the fact that they did not go into that means that they don't favor the Tassadar Hanzo pick as much as we would think.
Or they felt like Rhaegar was absolutely necessary, even more so than over the Tassadar. I hear you. We've seen it, the Tas Hanzo. But in this case, being able to rotate between the lanes, aid in the wave clear, give aid in murking too. Maybe they're just going to overrun Gale Force's space, if they can. But what here? Malthael or Zeratul? Uther.
I'm surprised, because I think Gale Force will happily pick up Lucio. Okay, I was going to say, I think they would happily pick up Lucio if you ban out Uther. And it looks like they changed their minds here towards the last minute. I think that's a much better call. Although Greymane Uther, Greymane, his success in North America, his best success has actually been paired with an Uther in Europe and North America. So It's just obviously a natural synergy
Yeah,
there
makes a lot of sense.
to dive, yeah, but take away something probably a little bit safer, a little bit more standard with the Lucio.
Back to Malthael.
I like it.
Malthael was let through. And that was a pretty easy choice for Gale Force.
Yeah, so much. They're waiting on the other one, but
That Rhaegar might have also been just in case Kerrigan, something funky, something weird, mages, cleanse.
that is
a few
true.
cleanse.
The cleanse.
But Rhaegar and Uther were still up, but maybe they felt like if they
Stukov.
didn't, yeah.
Stukov for me. I mean, after what I saw from June yesterday and the way that Tempo played that around that bottom shrine, controlled the entry point, ETC was completely neutralized, and then everything beyond that, Hanzo just got free value. Instead, we see Stukov over on the side of Gale Force. So somebody's taking notes.
Final 2 picks for LFM. What's Figgy gonna play?
Murden, I think, is a safe option.
And then T.
They need some more. They need some more pop to this.
Pop. Pizzazz.
Pizzazz. They could
T's-
go. They could go the Kalazar route.
Yeah, T's
Go
played
full song
pretty
style.
much every mage except that, and Jaina. But Kel'Thas and Gul'dan. Are they gonna Johanna again?
Johanna is super safe. I'd prefer Murden here. He can control that point. And when it comes to Stukov, you can zone out past the dwarf or past the lurking arm and then dwarf toss over. It's a little bit more way to safety. Iron Skin, when you get stuck in that lurking arm, you're far more susceptible.
Yeah, and
So-
ETC can keep you there.
Yeah, so I'd prefer a Murden.
Noob. And Li Ming.
So he's played a lot of Li Ming.
Mm-hmm.
Continue the mage style there. But the Anubarak. When the Anubarak can cocoon the Tormented Souls,
Right.
really neutralize that. Is this just, I mean, is this just another Tychus? I mean, we might go into mage style, but I'd be more than okay with the Tychus.
Yeah, Noob Leoric on the front line, definitely. Gives you a lot more punch with the Dragon Knight. Having an Odin behind it.
Frontline control, siege, anti-siege potential, really good shrine awareness, good follow-up, allow Greymane to kind of be the executioner, allow Tychus to be there. I'm loving it, man. I really like the way that Gale Force has taken this draft.
All right, laning setup. Leoric versus Malthael on the top. The rest in the bottom. Do you give the edge to either of the teams in the setup of the laning phase? Because that is very important on Dragonshire.
Yeah, the edge for me goes to the Malthael. The Malthael should win that matchup in the top lane, and there's not a whole lot of heavy rotation. I mean, everything, it's a skill shot technically getting the burrow in, the burrow charge. If you're going to go off that, then you got to have the skill shot from Lei Ming or Hanzo coming in. Everything is a skill shot to land to get a gank. Normally a gank, you try and get the CC, get the lockdown, something a little bit easier and something that can stick to a hero like a Greymane. So if we do see the rotation up, I think we could potentially see the same way. Gale Force, every single time, every map comes in, they prioritize the camps. Li Ming on that side as well as Hanzo. You just hard engage with a Greymane, you can stay range, you can move into Worgen form if there's not enough answer, get value out of that Knight camp top lane, and give yourself that small marginal advantage in the early game. I think that's going to be a part of Gale Force's early game success, and I imagine that's what LFM needs to prepare for.
Well, if you're struggling in the top lane, you got to make up for it somewhere else. We'll see if LFM maybe can do that with their Hanzo in the bottom lane, but our game is ready. Let's see if LFM has what it takes to take us to Game 5 on going into Dragonshire for Game 4.
LFM, they've got one game of this match on the board. Let's see if they can make it two and then potentially try and get their first series victory here in HGC as they go up against Gale Force, who seemingly picked up some momentum that last game, Gilly. Oh.
But the momentum of this game will be stopped for a second. We've got to pause.
We get Biggie pause there too. He was just like chilling. So are lights.
Hello. Welcome to
HGC After Dark.
the Thunderdome.
The Thunderdome? We're going to have to work on that.
Ooh. No.
No.
We're just
you know what,
gonna hang out here. You know, we're gonna take a load off, my friend.
So, what you been up to?
Casting some heroes. Hello.
Hey!
Hey. Oh, I didn't see you there.
Oh, we're back on. You know, I mean, a lot of action so far, Gillard.
Quite a bit. Quite a bit.
Somebody's frantically running to turn the lights on.
Yeah. So, before we went into the game, we talked about it. LFM, do they need to heavily prioritize bottom lane? Do they need to try to invade some camps? What are you hoping for here? Camp invasion is not going to be the easiest thing in the world for Stukov, but
The number one counter I think that they absolutely have to do is to pick the Knights up of their own. Just absolutely have to.
Okay.
To counter the push top lane. Because the problem with giving that early game or that early top push, Leoric does have a self-heal, but so does Malthael, and Malthael tends to win out a lot in the solos. So the way that's going to work is that if you can get the well down alone, I mean, I'm talking about just getting the well down with that first push, or at least opening up that line of defense. Now all the minions that will continue to stack up as Malthael wins that will give them that advantage to at least push forward and to try and get that well. And getting the wall down alone is enough of a start off of that first night camp. And the biggest part about getting that top push is to control that lane. It's the same way that we saw Gale Force do this in Towers of Doom, where they were trying to control that top lane. Towers of Doom, a lot different story than Dragonshire, and I think this is a much better map to have that strategy on.
So let's talk power levels of teams while we're remaking the game, so we'll be back into it in a second. Power levels within the region. We've seen now Tempo Storm be able to take out Team 12, though so close of a series yesterday. Team Freedom versus Heroes Hearth lost one game. Couple of games seemed they had to make up an effort somewhere. They fell behind there. But Freedom also had a pretty good win over Gale Force last weekend. Where are you placing Gale Force? Have you been able to figure out where they place yet within all of the 8 teams?
I wish I could. I
Yeah,
wish I
it's
could.
hard.
I mean, it was just.
I asked you because I didn't want to answer it.
Well, I mean, thanks, I guess, for the difficult question. You know, when we look at the fact that there are 4 teams that do go to the Clash,
Yeah.
it's very important that if a tiebreaker comes out, you need to win as many games and or you need to obviously win the series, but not lose as many games if that tiebreaker thing comes out. Obviously, there's some more rules out there. I don't have a rule book in front of me. I'm not even going to dare try. But the fact that you need to win those, and you need to win them decisively, one, for your own well-being, to make sure that you're taking the series you need to take, also getting the advantage there, but also having the game advantage when it comes to potential tiebreakers. Things like that I feel are very important. So for Gale Force here, if they're looking to fall into that 3rd, 4th, I think 3rd might be a little ambitious right now, but in that 4th, 5th spot and trying to get over that hump, I'd say that's where I put them at, but they really need to close this out if they really want to solidify themselves to have a spot in that top 4.
Yeah, no more mistakes, no more staggered deaths. Clean from here on out is what Gale Force is aiming for. And this is the only series for Gale Force this weekend. So after this, they get this win, then they can make sure that they're communicating and working on whatever issues for them they feel they need to improve on before some of those later series down the line. And now we're getting into it, though. We're ready for Game 4. Gale Force wins this game. They'll close it on out.
Fun thing here will be how aggressive we see this early game. When you have an ETC power slide, a gray main follow-up, and somebody to rip through that health bar like Tychus can with his minigun, and then you get the lurking arm underneath that. Anubrat can't burrow out at that point. You only have the one stun, but when you get silenced, that's where the problem is. So Fury, depending on how aggressive he is, I don't think we'll see it here in the 5-man skirmish, but once we get into the laning phase, I think that's a tremendous advantage for Gale Force.
Having that Malthael on the top lane is going to be a really big advantage for Gale Force in the solo lane. He went into the Fear the Reaper, so no on a pale horse. We've seen him pick that before as a way of, that's
2 people.
Gonna be a lot of problems for LFM, but having the Fear the Reaper just makes sure, because you are able to run through people, and he can get out from that. Michael, is not going to get away from that. As LFM, we're looking to see if they could come up and get some ganks, but at least Gale Force Esports will trade out by taking out Li Ming.
The battle of the dogs. Rhaegar seemed to be winning there. We didn't see what happened in the early part. And, you know, with that, it disrupts that early rotation towards the camps. And you said if you're going to get a camp on the side of Gale Force, LFM, what's your response? They actually had a pretty good response there. And it really disrupts the rotations of what I expected to see out of Gale Force, although Greymane has started the siege camp on their side. And I really strongly believe that Gale Force needs to try and take advantage of that top lane with the Knights after this phase concludes.
That has been, in general, the rotation that the members of LFM, or the members of Gale Force Esports tend to make. LFM checking to see if that rotation up has started, or to see if what's going on with the Giants from Gale Force. Both teams getting the Giants around the same time. No one heading up to those bruisers as of yet, but Gale Force ensuring that they're getting a good clear on all the lanes, setting up before they move forward.
They might have, let's say, Rhaegar kind of scooted on by there, but again, the lack of priority, and I really think that early kill kind of disrupted a lot of what Gale Force wants to do, but be aware, Gilly is in a bad spot here.
He's in a really bad spot. Doesn't want to go out of the Ghost Wolf form. Was hoping that he could just run out if he could, but again, these teams are going to trade in the kills by ensuring that they take out Tychus. Figgy rotating around to the side. They had T there too, took out Tychus while the whole team was focusing, making the best of a bad situation. Our LFM, they take back the shrine in the bottom. They still have their Giants going with that serrated arrows. We'll see if LFM want to make a quick rotation somewhere else and keep that mercenary camp pressure going. I would say if they start to get towers down, we might see them consistently focusing on trying to get the Giant and the Bruiser's bot.
They've opened this up a little bit. The slide's going to go in. Udon tries to go in. Lurking Arm. Just out of position there is Akaface, and here's LFM starting a camp of their own. And this is a good thing, I think. I think right now what we see on the mini-map is Greymane and Tychus going to return to their side as well to try and answer this push as Figgy defends the shrine capture in the middle.
Yeah, the amount of rotations is fairly scary for LFM, but only because both of the shrines have been claimed by Gale Force for quite a lot. But as long as you have someone who is able to take care of mid momentarily until you take back one of the shrines, and you're not getting too hasty. And now this is where the Fear of the Reaper should come in handy as he can pass through, but he wants to try to take out Swabs before he backs out of danger. Gale Force get there so that they turn the hunter into the hunted as they bring down Swabs.
They did, and right now I think that's the prime opportunity for Gale Force to take control. Leoric just now respawning. They still have their camp. You know, one of the small things that actually happened there was Stukov there just kind of hit in the bottom. He didn't nearly show. Sometimes you'll see a lot of players, they feel that they're in the solo lane, so they better clear. And sometimes if you're the support, you better clear the minions that are there, because that's what you're supposed to do. But by Stukov not showing, LFM did not know where he was. He could have been with the roaming squad, and it made it hard to gauge on when they could engage. They weren't able to engage, and then Gale Force got the kill up top. Oh, by the way, Gilly, they're using that camp pretty effectively.
That they are. They are going to bring down the fort in the top. And that's early in the game, before 5 minutes. Stukov is going to do what he can to slow down this bottom so that LFM can't as effectively trade out in the forts. They do get the well, they get the towers, they get the gate, but they're not going to get anything else more than that before Gale Force gets in. It was just Gale Force made the faster rotation. They're the ones who ended up getting the pick. They took advantage of that. They already had the camp out on the board. And LFM, seeing where so much of Gale Force was, went down and did get that bottom camp, but that took time to get the camp, so they couldn't push as much, and they didn't get as much out of it as a result.
There's the slide, a little bit of extra damage. No follow-up there, no Stukov lingering about. He's down here in the bottom, getting control of the shrine. And with Gale Force getting close to 10, Leoric nowhere near that top shrine. Looks like Gale Force might be able to get their first Dragon Knight, but LFM trying to take a fight pre-10.
Yeah, if they could have gotten a pick here, that would have helped a lot with stopping the Dragon Knight. But as it is now, this is troublesome for LFM. Gale Force have maintained constant presence in both of the shrines. Now with Cursed Bullet, the silence there too. Figgy just hanging around a little bit too long. Now that the heroic abilities were there, Stage Dive coming in. Fury says, nope, you're not going to get this shrine. We are going to get a Dragon Knight. Tychus gets right on in that, and siege begins.
Familiar position for Gale Force.
That's not familiar.
No way.
Last right.
Are you kidding me? Now here's the thing that happened, right? Leoric went top, Malthael had the 1v1, and then Rhaegar came up to try and get the pick. I wonder if that might have been a misclick to try and take that fight, or unless they just want to take advantage of potentially taking Leoric down.
There it is.
That's enough.
Goodbye.
There's one stack. I did not expect that. Yep.
I don't think LFM expected that either, but as we talked about, there are less full-on fights on Dragonshire. There are a lot more skirmishes, 1v1s, 2v2s, and Malthael finds himself in that situation.
Yeah, he also finds himself cocooned most of the time when he goes Tormented Souls.
Yeah. Inevitable end can help with that, but it's still trying to skill match up with that. Very interesting to see the last rights adjustment for B-Kid.
I'm not sure if I'm happy, excited, or afraid.
One other time in North America, it was picked. It was against a Garrosh, Tempo Storm versus Team 12. Last time those two teams faced off. Fury catches a new Barak, who has the Burrow charge to get back to the gate. Dragon Knight is done. Only the top fort still claimed by Gale Esports, but it still has given them a level lead. As LFM's working their way back into this game.
They're working their way back on, but they're still down. They're looking for the invade pre-13. ETC does have stage dive, so he can easily join this fight. There it is. He's stage diving in, and there's the cocoon. Udal's on the backside, getting his life drained from him, Gilly, but Fury holding point.
Yeah, Fury's on the point, which forces Figgy back, and that allows the rest of the team to turn and take out Leoric. The point will be snagged by LFM, but now T was just about going to be in range of getting the kill. He uses the last rights, but not before he goes down. He still goes down, but gets the kill on Rhaegar, giving him the stack, but also giving T some health back thanks to dominance.
He went in. Normally you're like, all right, is it really worth it to go in and trade? But then you realize, like, look, if I trade, I get more heroic, cooldowns, and that's kind of the main thing.
But I still feel like you go in there and you have Tormented Souls, especially with Cocoon already being used. The way that LFM was grouped might have gotten more out of that,
more
but
than one
maybe
person.
not. Maybe not. Man, they were so close to taking out Tychus. He was in the Entomb, and then LFM turned around because they wanted to get on the point. They wanted to get Figgy on the point.
I'm not sure about that call there for Udal, as he's going to lose his life over the siege camp there. Team hadn't rotated over just yet. So LFM getting close to 13 now, as the shrines, of course, have reactivated as well.
And this is a place that LFM feels like maybe they can finally get an opportunity, an opening in this game. Stealing the Giants, now getting the Bruisers. This is going to be a mega push in the bottom lane. They'll have Ancestral in 10 seconds, should they be collapsed on. But Fury is going to use this time to push that top lane, and Leoric's not there to soak that up, so it's going to be a lot of experience missed.
They might try and dive behind this. Obviously, ETC pushing is only going to do so much. You have the remnants of this night camp, plus the siege giants, taking out half of that keep wall.
Odin Force, they feel is good enough. They're trying to see if they can get in on that Malthael. It's been spotted out. Dragon's Arrow is going to go in. Malthael gets hit by that. As the stage dive went down, so did Malthael, and Fury has to power slide away. LFM keeping the staggered deaths going versus Gale Force.
Yeah, it's just too much of a common theme right around the 12, 13, 14 mark. It seems like the middle game is hurting Gale Force a lot. They're staggering deaths. They continue to get caught out in almost every game, and it's really allowed LFM to be in moments that they might not, against a tougher team, might have had a little bit less success. Gale Force, I'm just not sure where the communication is to where these mid games they continue to stagger deaths. It's happened enough in this series, Gilly, where it's actually a thing that we kind of have to talk about.
Yeah, and it was even there with Team Freedom too. There were a few games where Gale Force, oh no, on that topic, Big E, flailing swipe. All right, he's out.
Akaface came in with a clutch heal, using that bio kill switch to make sure and get that burst healing in.
Yeah, but versus Freedom, that was the exact same time where the games that Gale Force got ahead, with the exception of Towers, Freedom were able to start some team fights. But Freedom is just such a dominant team fighting team, and we've seen Freedom fall behind in early game versus other teams now. It happened yesterday. But even still, it does feel like that is the main point of improvement for Gale Force Esports going forward into the other series, is that mid game.
Biggie here stacking up his minigun. He did go in the rhythm. He's at 38 stacks there. And here against the Dragonite does count as a heroic target, allowing that minigun to get really good value. And they've held on to this fort for quite some time just because of Tychus alone.
Yeah, nice to see LFM go around from the side, though, through that giant camp and have the poke that they had. Also some of the scarabs. Just doing what they can to help that out and making sure that the Dragonite's tanking that minigun so that no one else gets low. ETC has been doing a phenomenal job of keeping that top lane readily pushed against LFM.
I wondered in the draft if, we saw the ETC pick, would they play that style? They've definitely adapted back to that, knowing that they tend to prioritize having that global there no matter what. Mosh pit, just way too many things to deal with on the other side. So Gale Force style, nonetheless.
Oh, cursed bullet. You get caught like that with all of Gale Force there, and you are not going to live, Leoric. Swab's down for a little while, doing what he can to cheat death. There are still a lot of camp pressure on LFM in the bottom, and Fury was hoping to catch LFM as they retreated from that, but it was just Figgy and a great impale to ensure that he couldn't chase them down. Now it's LFM who wants to chase, knowing that they'll have their Leoric soon.
I think they were a half step too slow. The recognition was there, but not in time. Still pretty even, though, Gilly, in terms of experience. We have the top lane that was slightly opened up earlier, but the bottom lane, more importantly, on the side of Gale Force, is taking some structural damage.
Oh, great burrow charge into the Dragon's Arrow from LFM. They are pouncing on Gale Force Esports. The flailing swipe stops the pounce long enough for them to try to get big impact out of the cocoon, but with a follow-up in Tomb, LFM bring down both range damage dealers of Gale Force.
Yeah, that was a really good setup. The cocoon was just about to be popped there. Leoric got himself into position. Swab's making an excellent play, finding Udall and Tychus in the middle of that when he came out of the cocoon, really setting up that and enabling his team. And with that already being softened up, they push right in, take the rest of the keep. And structural advantage-wise, this is the power play, the bottom lane. Having that keep down gives you so much control for the rest of the game.
Yeah, well, top lane was a focus for Gale Force and continues to be pushed against LFM. Having that bottom lane pushed as far as they have it ensures that at least one shrine is easy for LFM to get and keep for a while, and it forces Gale Force to continually put focus on the top as the only shrine that is easily available for them. Now, Swabs is going to be in trouble. Gets the Wraithwalk out beforehand. Oh, the swoop around is incredible. That was a little shoop-de-whoop right there.
Shoop-de-whoop, and now the coordination is going to come in here. Stage dive, just dodging the impale will save the life of Fury. They might have actually found themselves a Rhaegar. So they've got themselves a bit of a trade here. Can they finish it?
Shield.
There it is.
He goes down. Both the shrines held 1 for 1 on supports. It'll be Stukov who's back faster. Last rights.
It's there.
The end of Swabs.
I don't know how much pressure we have on the core, but it will be something soon that Gale Force will have to respond to. Tychus still 13 seconds away. Doesn't have the best clear. Li Ming. They've got the slow.
The slow.
Michael Udall's trying to get the button block.
The scatter arrow, he's got it. He's got him too. 2 more kills for LFM. Holy moly. And a Dragon Knight.
Swabs Magoo's like, look, I might be dead, but I got a slow here. Spooky ghost form. Come on in. All of a sudden with 2 members down, it looks like they're moving to do damage on core. Leoric will be back soon. Tychus is still 30 seconds away from being able to rip apart that Dragon Knight. This is not a guarantee, but the odds are high that LFM might be sending us to a game 5.
Yeah, they got the menus going. They'll have Rhaegar back, but he still has to run back. No Wolf run, so it's going to take a little bit longer. Dragon's Arrow went out and missed. Swab from the side hits Arcaface, and in the middle of Flailing Swipe, he is brought down. That Entomb was perfect. Swabs is on point. He's going to fall, but the Dragon Knight still plenty healthy enough to bring this down and send us to game 5.
LFM, those last few minutes,
Yo.
just phenomenal team coordination.
Oh, yeah.
And, we mentioned Swabs as being one of the key components to this series, and whether it be the Dahaka, that Leoric play, whether it was the Entomb out of the cocoon, whether it was the top part getting the bait, yeah, he got the little, he evaded there. Even when he died there, it was not in vain. It was to allow his team to do more. He got the slow, Draded hopped right on over, got the bounce off. perfect geometry, and then Li Ming, of course, helping to set that up. That was team coordination, and I think when LFM is going, it looks pretty good.
You got to keep in mind, as the veteran teams, that all of the teams that were in HGC made roster changes. The 2 teams that didn't are the teams that came in from Open Division. You can't. So that synergy is something that both heroes